Captain Aaron stood at the edge of Dock Bay 19, looking at his old cargo ship. It was quiet, dark, and covered in dust. The hull was scratched, the lights were off, and nothing had moved in 2 years to anyone else. The ship looked dead, but to Aaron, it still held value, a broken engine part he needed for his current ship. He stepped onto the boarding ramp, the metal creaking under his boots. His flashlight cut through the darkness, showing faded paint and empty crates. He hadn't stepped foot inside this ship since the war ended. Too many bad memories, too much pain. But now, he needed that part to fix his main engine. Aaron walked through the hallway, his footsteps echoing. He reached the control room and flipped a switch. The power flickered on, then died, then came back again. That was strange, he thought. He had shut down all systems before leaving. No power should be running. The air felt heavy, like something was watching him. He brushed it off as old nerves and moved toward the storage bay as he passed the galley. He noticed something unusual. A cup was on the table, clean, and beside it, a small piece of bread. His heart jumped. That wasn't there before. He looked around quickly, then whispered to himself, maybe someone used this ship as shelter. It wasn't uncommon. Abandoned ships were often used by scavengers or runaways. Still, he kept one hand near his sidearm, just in case. Aaron moved carefully toward the cargo hold. He passed a vent, and suddenly, a sound, soft, fast, like someone crawling away. He stopped, listening, silence, then footsteps, very light. Running down the hallway behind him, he spun around, flashlight shaking, but saw nothing. His heart beat faster now. Something was here, and it was hiding. Hello? He called out, voice calm but firm. I don't want trouble. I just came for a part. No reply, just silence. He kept moving, more alert now. He checked a few crates, opened a maintenance panel, and finally reached the engine room. He was about to step inside when his flashlight landed on someone. A figure stood near the engine core. Small and thin, long white hair, bare feet, and glowing violet eyes. Aaron froze. The figure looked at him, wide-eyed, then turned and ran into the shadows. Wait, Aaron called. I'm not here to hurt you. But the figure was gone. Disappeared into the darkness. He followed slowly, scanning the area. He found a blanket on the floor, next to a pile of food wrappers and an empty water bottle. Whoever this person was, they had been living here for days, maybe weeks, but how did they get in? Why hadn't the ship's sensors warned him? He looked up at the vent above the blanket, just large enough for a small person to crawl through. Not a scavenger, he whispered. She's hiding from something. He sat down near the blanket, setting his flashlight down. I don't know who you are, he said softly, but this was my ship once, and it's not safe here anymore. Still no response. He waited a few minutes, then stood up and left a protein bar and a bottle of clean water by the blanket. Then, he walked away, back in the control room. He activated the ship's logs. Most of the recent data had been erased. But one corrupted file showed a small pod docking 8 months ago, unauthorized. The footage was broken, only static, but the docking signal was real. 8 months, Aaron said to himself, she's been here that long. Later that night, after working in silence, Aaron returned to the storage area. The blanket was gone. The food as well. In its place was a note written on old maintenance paper, in rough, uneven letters. I'm sorry. I thought this place was dead. I was not supposed to survive. Please don't make me leave. I'll stay hidden. Aaron read the note twice, then looked around the silent ship. He felt something in his chest, not fear, not anger, but curiosity, maybe even concern. Who are you? He whispered into the dark. No answer came, but from the far corner, just beyond the light, a pair of violet eyes were watching him again. Aaron woke early the next morning and returned to the cargo hold. The note was still there, but the blanket? And food were gone. He knew she had taken them. That meant she was still on board. Still listening, still watching, he looked around and said softly, "It's okay. I won't hurt you. I just want to talk." Nothing moved. The silence felt heavy. Again. Like the ship itself was holding its breath. Aaron sat down on a nearby crate and waited. He didn't call out again, didn't chase the shadows. Instead, he opened a pack of rations and began to eat, making sure she could see he wasn't dangerous. Minutes passed then, a sound quiet and soft, like bare feet on metal. He didn't turn, just listened. Then he felt it, someone behind him. "Watching closely, you can sit," he said gently. "I won't ask questions if you don't want." Slowly, carefully, the figure stepped into view. It was the same girl. White hair down to her shoulders, skin pale and slightly glowing under the ship lights. She was thin, too thin, wearing old clothes stitched together from scraps. Her violet eyes looked at him, full of fear, but also something else. Curiosity. She didn't speak at first, just stared. Aaron offered her a ration bar without a word. She looked at it, sniffed it, then took it slowly and backed away. "I'm Aaron," he said, watching her carefully. "This used to be my ship, but I left it a long time ago." The girl hesitated, then whispered, "You come back now." Her voice was quiet, almost broken. "I needed a part." Aaron said, "Didn't know anyone was living here." She nodded once, still clutching the food. Her eyes stayed on him, alert and ready to run. At any moment. "What's your name?" he asked. She looked down, then back at him. "Kayla," she said. Barely above a whisper. "Okay, Kayla," he said with a small smile. "You don't have to be scared." "I thought no one come back," she said. "Ship safe, ship quiet." "No people it was," he said. "Until now." Kayla stepped back again, then pointed toward the hallway. "You take what you want. Then go," she said, her voice shaking. "Please." Aaron saw the fear in her face, and something inside him tightened. She had been hiding for a long time, maybe her whole life. "No one else knows you're here," he said slowly. "I didn't tell anyone." She looked surprised by that. "Why?" she asked. "Not afraid of me?" Aaron shook his head. "You haven't hurt me." Kayla frowned, like she didn't believe it could be that simple. He stood up slowly, making sure not to move too fast. "Kayla," he said, "you don't have to hide from me." She didn't answer. Instead, she turned and ran again, not far this time, just to the hallway, before disappearing. She looked back once, then said, "They look for me." Aaron froze. "They?" he asked. "Who's looking for you?" But she was gone. The silence returned. Deeper now, colder. He didn't follow. Instead, he returned to the control room, sat at the console, and opened the security logs again, the video from the docking. Bay was still corrupted, but he noticed something else. A line of power use that didn't belong. Tiny pulses of energy spaced perfectly, repeating like a pattern. Someone had been hiding their presence on purpose, masking their life signs. This wasn't just a scared girl. This was someone trained to survive. He leaned back and sighed. Kayla wasn't just running from hunger or fear. She was running from someone specific. Someone dangerous. That night, he left another blanket and a clean shirt outside the engine room, and next to it, a message written on a scrap of metal. "You're not alone anymore." From the shadows near the vent to violet eyes watched him quietly. The ship was quiet again, too quiet for Aaron's comfort. But this time, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt like breathing, slow, cautious breathing. Kayla hadn't spoken to him since yesterday, but she hadn't run away either. She was still there, somewhere in the shadows. Aaron spent the morning working in the control room. He didn't search for her, didn't call her name. He let her decide if she wanted to come out. Instead, he focused on the logs, the deeper he dug. The more strange things he found. The docking record from 8 months ago wasn't just corrupted. It had been manually erased. Someone didn't want anyone to know a pod had arrived, but they missed something, a single damaged entry. Buried in the system memory, he restored part of it, enough to see a ship ID, unknown origin. No registry that wasn't normal, that wasn't civilian. Aaron leaned back and rubbed his face. He didn't like where this was going. That evening, as he powered down the console, he noticed something new. On the table beside him was a folded piece of cloth, the shirt he had left for Kayla. It had been washed, repaired with small, careful stitches, and placed gently in return. She had touched it, handled it. A silent thank you. Maybe. He turned, and there she was, halfway down the hall. Not hiding this time. She was standing still, arms crossed, eyes locked on him. Aaron didn't speak, just nodded. Kayla stepped closer, slowly, her feet bare and quiet on the cold floor. "Why you come back?" she asked. Her voice was soft, but her question carried weight. "I needed a stabilizer for my other ship." Aaron answered, "Only this one has the model I need." Kayla nodded, but her eyes stayed sharp. "You go soon." "I was planning to," he said, "but now I'm not sure." She tilted her head slightly. Confused, Aaron continued, "You've been living here, and you're afraid, not of me, but of someone else." Kayla's face went still. She looked at the floor, then said one word. "Hunters." Aaron's heart sank. "Who are they?" he asked. She didn't answer right away. Then, slowly, she moved past him and tapped the console logs. She said, "Show you more." He watched as she reached behind the panel and pulled out a hidden data chip. She handed it to him without a word, then stepped back. Aaron inserted it into the console and opened the file. It was raw footage, shaky, dim, but clear enough. A small lab ship, full of cages. Aliens, like Kayla, young, injured, afraid. Men in black suits walking between them with scanners and cold faces. Kayla was one of them, inside a cage, her face bruised, her eyes empty. Aaron stared at the screen. "Frozen? How did you get out?" he asked quietly. Kayla pointed to a single frame in the video, a moment of fire, of light and explosion. She had escaped in the chaos, stolen a pod, found the first ship she could. This ship, Aaron's ship. "They want me back," she said, her voice shaking, "not because they care, but because I know." He nodded slowly. Kayla walked to the window and stared into the stars. "Space is big," she said, "but not big enough when someone is hunting you." Aaron didn't speak. He looked at her, this girl who had survived alone for months. Scared, but not broken. Running, but still standing. A sound interrupted them, a soft alarm. Aaron looked at the screen. A ship had just entered the system. No ID, no beacon, silent and slow. Watching from afar, Kayla turned, her face pale. "They found me," she whispered. Aaron locked eyes with her. "You're not alone anymore," he said. "We fight them together." She didn't answer, but her violet eyes glowed brighter, just for a second. Then, without a word, she vanished. Back into the shadows, Aaron looked at the ship approaching on the screen. It was still far, but not for long. They were out of time. And the dead ship? It wasn't dead anymore. Aaron couldn't sleep. He stayed in the control room, eyes fixed on the silent ship drifting in the distance. It had no lights, no ID signal, just a dark outline against the stars, watching, waiting, whoever they were. They weren't in a hurry. He didn't tell Kayla about the proximity alert again. She already knew, the way her eyes followed the window. The way she moved more quietly now, she could feel them coming. The ship creaked around him, old systems humming. He walked through the halls, checking bulkheads, sealing doors, preparing systems that hadn't been touched in years. His ship was broken, but not useless. It still had teeth, small ones, old ones, but enough to bite if needed. Kayla appeared behind him without sound, like a ghost. She held a small tool in one hand, wires in the other. "You fix power routes wrong," she said, almost scolding. Aaron blinked, then smiled. "Guess you've been watching more than I thought." She didn't smile back, but she knelt beside the wall panel and began to repair the connection. Her fingers moved fast, steady. He sat beside her, watching the way she worked. "Kayla," he said softly, "you were on that lab ship for how long?" She didn't look at him. "Not days," she whispered. "Not weeks." Her voice dropped lower. "They took me when I was small. I don't remember my family." Aaron stayed quiet. She finished the wiring. Sparks flashing briefly. Then she sat back, resting her hands on her knees. "I wasn't the first," she said, "and I wasn't the last. They collected us, different species. Different skills." Her voice was cold now, but her hands were shaking. "They made us. Hurt each other, made us obey." She looked up at him, her violet eyes bright with something new. Not fear. Not sadness. Anger. "I broke their rules. I fought back. I escaped. But they don't let broken toys run free." Aaron nodded slowly. "They're not getting you back," he said. "Not while I'm breathing." Kayla tilted her head, puzzled. "Why?" "Because this ship is mine," Aaron said, "and now you're part of it." "You don't know me," she whispered. "What if I'm dangerous?" Aaron chuckled. "You live in my vents, fix my power, and eat half a ration bar a day." He said, "If that's dangerous, I'll take my chances." For the first time, she smiled. It was small, unsure. But it was real. The next day, they worked together. Kayla showed him hidden spaces she'd used for storage, short paths through maintenance shafts. Power loops she had built herself. She was smart, not just surviving, but learning, adapting. Building, they installed backup power to the old cannon system. It wasn't much, but it could fire once, maybe twice. The ship was a sleeping wolf now. Not strong, but sharp when needed. But time was short. That dark ship in orbit hadn't moved closer. But it hadn't left either. Aaron knew the type. Patient, slow, like a predator waiting for nightfall. That night, he and Kayla sat in the engine room. She traced a line on the floor with her finger, then said quietly, "They want to take me back because I changed. I wasn't born with this," she said. Lifting her hand, a soft glow spread from her palm. Metal dust on the floor lifted into the air and floated like tiny stars. "I didn't ask for it," she whispered. "They forced it into me, through pain." Aaron watched silently. She let the dust fall, her hand shaking. "I can move things. I can hear signals sometimes, feel energy. But every time I use it, I remember them." "You're not what they made," Aaron said. "You're what you chose to become." Kayla didn't answer, but her eyes didn't leave his. Suddenly, the control panel beeped from the hallway. Aaron stood fast, Kayla already ahead of him. The dark ship had sent a signal. Not words, not a message. Just a code. Repeating on loop, a string of numbers, coordinates, a warning. "They've locked onto us," Aaron said. "They're not hiding anymore." Kayla touched the panel, then looked at him. "They don't want to talk," she said. "They're coming." Aaron tightened his grip on the console. "Then we give them a welcome they won't forget." Kayla nodded once and walked away. No fear in her steps, no trembling, only fire. The dark ship hung in orbit like a shadow waiting to strike. Aaron stood at the viewport, watching the empty space between them shrink slowly. No lights, no signals, just silent and cold. His fingers tapped nervously on the console, every moment. Stretched thin like a wire about to snap, Kayla appeared beside him, her eyes sharp and alert. She didn't speak, but her body told the story, tense, ready, waiting for the worst. Aaron could feel it too, the weight of danger closing in. Suddenly, alarms blared through the ship. Loud and harsh, "Boarders incoming," the computer announced. Cold and mechanical, Aaron grabbed his sidearm and moved fast. Kayla followed silently, her eyes glowing faintly violet. The corridors filled with shadows, not just dark corners, but shapes moving quick and precise. Black armored figures with no faces visible through their helmets. They came like ghosts. Gliding through the ship's corridors, Aaron fired a warning shot. The bullet pinged off the metal walls. The intruders didn't stop, didn't flinch. Kayla stepped forward, her hand raised. A wave of energy pulsed from her palm. The nearest attacker stumbled as if caught in an invisible net. Aaron's jaw tightened. Her power was real and dangerous. They ran through the ship's narrow halls, traps and old security measures slowing the boarders. Aaron triggered bulkhead. Doors to slam shut. Kayla moved swiftly, sending pulses that knocked enemies off their feet. But there were too many. One attacker caught Aaron by surprise. A swift strike to his arm. Pain flared, but he pushed back. "This is my ship," Aaron shouted, firing again. Kayla was beside him in a flash, her violet eyes blazing. She reached out, and with a sudden force slammed an enemy into the wall. The attacker crumpled like paper, stunned. Kayla's breathing was heavy, her face fierce. Aaron realized she was fighting more than just these intruders. She was fighting her past. They moved deeper into the ship, toward the engine room. The boarders were closing in, but Aaron and Kayla were a team now. Their moves were coordinated, almost like they had trained together. Aaron shouted, "Hold here. I'm activating the defense systems." He punched buttons and levers on the control panel. Old turrets awakened with slow groans. Blasts of energy fired into the hallways, forcing the enemies back. Kayla took advantage of the chaos, sending a powerful wave through the ship's metal frame. The attackers fell one by one, but Aaron knew this was only a delay. More would come, and soon. Suddenly, the ship shook, violently. A heavy impact rocked the hull. Another ship had docked forcibly. More boarders poured in through airlocks. Flooding the corridors, Aaron gritted his teeth. "We can't keep this up much longer." Kayla's eyes narrowed, glowing brighter than before. She stepped forward, hands raised, energy swirled around her like a storm waiting to break. "I'm done running," she said quietly, voice steady. Aaron felt a surge of hope. This was the moment she had been preparing for. Together, they faced the wave of enemies with fire and will. The abandoned ship was alive again, a battlefield and a home. And Kayla was no longer just a scared girl hiding in the shadows. She was a force to be reckoned with. The ship shook as the battle raged on. Sparks flew from damaged panels and smoke filled the air. Aaron struggled to keep his footing, his arm still aching from the earlier blow around him. The sounds of combat echoed, metal clashing, distant thuds, and low growls of energy. Kayla stood at the center of the chaos, calm and fierce. Her violet eyes burned brighter than ever, glowing like twin stars in the dim light. She raised her hands, and the air around her rippled. Metal tools and debris lifted from the floor. Swirling like a storm, Aaron watched as she controlled them with silent will. Pulses of power shot from her fingers, sending attackers crashing into walls or flying backward. But her strength came with a cost. Kayla's breathing was heavy, sweat dripping from her forehead. Each use of her power left her weaker, but she refused to stop. This was no longer just survival. It was fight or die. Aaron gritted his teeth, firing his weapon at a boarder. Sneaking behind a bulkhead, he moved toward Kayla. "You need rest," he shouted over the noise. She shook her head, eyes blazing. "No time," she said, voice sharp. "They come too fast." Suddenly, a loud crash echoed as a new enemy broke. Through the reinforced door, Aaron jumped in front of Kayla just in time, blocking the attacker's strike. Kayla reacted instantly, extending her hands. A shockwave blasted out, knocking the enemy down. But more were coming, faster now, more aggressive. Aaron grabbed Kayla's arm. "We need a plan," he said urgently. She nodded, wiping sweat from her face. "Follow me," she said, leading him down a narrow maintenance tunnel. The passage was cramped and dark, but Kayla moved confidently. "I know this ship better than anyone," she said. "Even you," she teased, a rare smile breaking through. They reached the hidden control room, a forgotten space filled with old tech. Kayla powered it up, bringing flickering lights and humming machines to life. Aaron watched. As she tapped into the ship's defense systems, old turrets swiveled and locked onto the enemies. The ship had teeth again, ready to bite. "Now," Kayla said, "we take back the ship." Together, they sent out waves of energy and fired weapons. The intruders were pushed back, struggling against the sudden assault. Aaron and Kayla fought. Side by side, a perfect team, their trust growing with every clash, every narrow escape. But even as the attackers retreated, Aaron knew this was not the end. They were only buying time. Kayla's powers were incredible, but they could not last. Forever, the hunters would come back, stronger and more prepared. As the smoke cleared, Aaron looked at Kayla, tired but unbroken. "You're stronger than I thought," he said quietly. She smiled softly. Not just stronger, different. And in that moment, Aaron realized she was no longer the scared girl hiding in his ship. She was a new kind of warrior, one who would fight not just for herself, but for the freedom of others like her. The abandoned ship was alive, and so was its new protector. The enemy ship drifted closer, its dark hull looming like a storm ready to break. Aaron and Kayla stood side by side in the bridge, the heart of the old ship now alive with energy and hope. Kayla's eyes glowed brighter than ever, her power humming through the walls. She reached out, and the ship seemed to respond. The engines thrummed, the weapons systems hummed, and the turrets aligned with deadly precision. Aaron gripped the controls, feeling the pulse of the ship under his hands. "This is it," he said quietly. "We fight or we die." The boarders launched their final attack, crashing through bulkheads and airlocks. But Kayla was ready. She moved like a force of nature, hands glowing, sending waves of energy that tore through enemies and shattered armor. Aaron fired the cannons, blasting corridors clear. The old ship roared back to life, fighting with the strength of its new crew. Kayla's power was unlike anything Aaron had ever seen. She lifted massive pieces of debris and hurled them at attackers. She moved with speed and grace, unstoppable and fierce, but every moment drained her. And Aaron knew she could not keep this up forever. Suddenly, the enemy ship fired a heavy blast. The hull shook violently. Alarm screamed. Aaron struggled too. "Keep control," sweat pouring down his face. Kayla reached out and caught his arm. Steadying him, "We end this now," she said. Fierce and calm, together they unleashed everything they had. A final blast of energy from Kayla met with the ship's cannon fire. The enemy ship shuddered, sparks flying, then began to drift away. Broken and defeated, silence fell, heavy and deep. Aaron looked at Kayla, breathing hard. "You did it," he said, voice full of awe. She smiled weakly, exhaustion softening her fierce eyes. "We survived," she said, "together." The ship hummed quietly around them, no longer abandoned, now it was home. Aaron turned to Kayla. "Stay with me," he said, "not as a guest, not as a secret, but as my crew." Kayla nodded, hope shining in her violet eyes. "Let's go home," she said softly, and with the stars shining outside the viewport, their journey was just beginning.